Welcome to part 2, covering the topic of imposter syndrome. A bit of a recap for what I covered in the first video. First investigated in the 1970s by psychologists Clance and Suzanne Imes, imposter syndrome is the mindset in which we doubt or we diminish our abilities and our successes. We might feel like we don't deserve to be there, feel incompetent, or might be waiting to be found out. It's often born from the feeling that imperfection breeds incompetence, an obviously flawed and irrational mindset. In addition, we might have this misconception about other people's mindset and success. It feels like everyone around you is achieving success and has their shit together, and we're the only ones struggling. In fact, it's approximately 70% of people suffer from imposter syndrome, across all demographics and professions. It seems to be especially prevalent amongst women and people working in industries where they are a minority as a result of their gender or their ethnicity. While not itself a psychiatric illness, it can lead to other mental health issues like anxiety, depression, and our general well-being. I interviewed 2 creative professionals, and I selected them because they're freelancers, which is an important area for me and a potential direction I wish to head in. Jenna is a graphic designer at Pippin Creative. Libby provides creative content, copywriting, and editing services at Expressions Media. Libby has also given a speech to university students specifically regarding her experience with imposter syndrome and has both an education and a journalist background. Both provided invaluable insight through their own experiences and battles with imposter syndrome as freelance creatives. Jenna first became aware of imposter syndrome when she made a career change. When she began to feel like she couldn't do it, a successful event planning friend told her about imposter syndrome and ways to manage it. Libby also first encountered it when she became a freelancer, and her colleagues spoke of being affected, so she researched further and found much of it resonated with her. Facebook groups for freelance and creators were also an important source of information. Much of this feels like it's the same for me. I had never heard of it before until I'd come across it by friends and also the freelance groups. Both Jenna and Libby believe that raising awareness of imposter syndrome is important in order to work towards managing it and showing understanding and empathy to others that may be living with the same symptoms. Many people suffer because they feel they're alone. Knowing there are others feeling the same relieves some of that pressure. So a less anxious and more well-rounded version of imposter syndrome can potentially be beneficial if the sufferer can learn to balance questioning themselves and analysing shortcomings with feeling proud of their work and motivated to improve. It's important to be aware that you're not perfect and no one is. Accept that and feel empowered when making choices for improvement. Libby's methods for addressing and managing imposter syndrome within her own practice involve taking regular stock of her achievements and actively working to keep things in perspective. She also employs meditation and breathing exercises and utilizes a strong support framework of freelance colleagues. Jenna found reading about psychology valuable to see how common the symptoms were. Self-awareness is a key component. She finds strategies to prevent over-internalizing and overthinking, as well as talking about it to others. She writes down the problem and a solution, then the lesson, in order to make the underlying issue clear, which she can recall when she begins to overthink again. Breaking the tasks down into bite-sized pieces and prioritizing them is also a strategy. Jenna also finds connecting with other people in her field and freelance groups valuable. Mental health strains as a freelancer, such as anxiety, depression, and delayed projects, can be both easier and more challenging. On one hand, having the flexibility to structure work to fit around your personal, mental, and physical health needs in your own space, time, and way seems to be one of the reasons many turn to freelancing. However, working alone can contribute to feeling isolated and anxious. Due to these reasons, many freelancers rely on Facebook support groups and regular networking groups and clubs. I wanted to explore whether there was a difference between client-led briefs and self-initiated projects in correlation and incidence to imposter syndrome. Interestingly, Jenna and Libby had opposite opinions, but with equally valid points. Where Libby finds greater liberation and confidence with self-initiated projects because she can set her own goals, standards, and parameters, there's more room for self-doubt and anxiety over meeting a client's expectations. Where Jenna believes that having set parameters for client-led projects may be easier for those with anxiety due to less emotional pressure. Following a brief to completion can be where a talent really shines, because there is little room for making creative decisions and all one has to do is nail the goal. When reviewing the interview answers and doing some research about the topic, I came to understand that imposter syndrome is not only evident in my creative life, but in my everyday life too. It suggests that these stem from a deeper feeling of insecurity and probably have evolved out of my previous experiences throughout my life. Being fed by the constant pressure to stand out, meet my own high expectations and that of my teachers and peers, I can attribute many of the trademarks of imposter syndrome correlating with my level of success. And by that, I mean that during my childhood and adolescence, I rarely felt inhibited to commence a project out of fear of failure because I had nothing to lose. As a graphic designer, I am often crippled with self-doubt, constantly comparing my work to others and overlooking the positives to focus on all the things that I should have done better. Even as a successful prop maker, I questioned my validity. I knew I was good at what I did, and I invested a great deal of time researching and refining my skills, and I'd won numerous awards, but still I questioned whether it was a fluke. When invited to present prop making workshops at a convention, I was always thinking someone else would be more experienced, would be a better choice, and surely the audience would realize that I was a fraud. I had successfully conducted workshops at the same convention in previous years. In fact, my workshops were the most popular of the weekend. They were actually over capacity. I literally had evidence of my success, but even when invited in following years, I still questioned myself. The strategies Jenna and Libby outlined were definitely useful methods, and ones I do at least in part already employ when I feel overwhelmed. Breaking a project down into its components helps make a daunting task seem manageable. I do believe that the key lies in awareness and open communication. Knowing so many other people, and highly successful people, also face this makes a huge difference in my self-worth and confidence. Being able to openly communicate these fears with our industry peers has proven to be extremely valuable, and I believe that there is weight to addressing this issue at its core before it can manage to take such a large hold. This leads me to believe that moving forward, I should focus on addressing the issues of imposter syndrome and associated mental health issues at secondary and tertiary level. We should be demonstrating to students that they can seek help if they need to better manage their mental health, and that these feelings are perfectly valid. The first concept would be to develop informative documentation to provide to students, such as brochures and postcards. The second concept is for industry professionals to come and talk to students about these issues that will more than likely plague them throughout their studies and career, and some ways to manage it early on. And finally, writing off a comment Jenna made about how she wasn't aware of resources available to freelancers within the creative industry suffering mental health issues, I'd like to investigate tactics that can provide ongoing education and support outside of the existing support networks for creative freelancers.